My name is Ulea Lago, and I am Director of Consulting at Empower Success Corps, based in Boston, Massachusetts. I am really excited to be here today to talk to all of you, and I'd like it not to be just me talking to you. I like conversation. I have kind of put an outline together of what I think you'll be most interested in, but I'm okay being wrong with that. So ask questions. We can go off topic if we need to, but make this interactive. It's much more fun than listening to me chat for just an hour. So our mission at Empower Success Corps is to enhance the impact of the nonprofit community by engaging experienced professionals dedicated to serving the nonprofit world. Our vision is where nonprofits are able to create positive, sustainable impact. So in essence, we empower nonprofits to undertake sustainable change by providing services to increase efficiency, build capacity, and prepare organizations for the future by carefully matching them with the experts they need, providing consulting, staffing, and professional development services. But I'm going to talk more about that later. Right now, I want to talk about my goal for the talk. I really want you to think differently about retirement and volunteering. As we know, in Japan, it's a super aging society. Here in the US, we have a similar problem with similar opportunity with senior professionals aging up and wanting to know how they can give back, how they can do things. So I want to start, what do you think of when you hear the word retirement? Golfing. Something else. One more. Time. Lots of time. And what do you think about when you hear the word volunteering? Free. Excellent. So I'm going to show you a quick video of two of our pro bono consultants, Les and Bruce, as they talk about their experience with ESC.
I like being an ESC consultant because it allows me finally to give something back to the community, which I haven't been able to do during my work career. And what most people underestimate is the great enjoyment of working with extremely talented people. And when I was retired, I realized I missed working in a team environment. I still learn from people, and I've made some great friendships associated with that experience. So that has been extremely rewarding to me as an individual.
ESC has been a wonderful experience for me. It's fun. It's very rewarding. It provides a great opportunity for me to use my mind, which, since I've been retired, there are more opportunities to not use my mind very much. So I take advantage of the ESC opportunities to really dig into work like I did when I was working in my career. And the satisfactions from being able to help organizations which are doing wonderful things for our community, for our society, to be helping them to do even better is very satisfying.
Okay. I hate toggling back and forth between videos. It's very cumbersome. So that's Les and Bruce. But let's talk now about Andy. Andy spent 21 years as CEO of a law firm, under which he evolved the organization from being a local-based law practice in Boston to an international firm with offices in London, Dublin, New York, DC, Hartford, and Providence. He served on the board of directors of Eastern Bank for 15 years, including 5 years as the lead director there, and on the compensation committee. He spent 7 years on the board of Partners, which is a $12.5 billion New England healthcare company. Eventually, he retired from the law firm and moved down to Florida, but flew up to Boston twice a month for meetings, and served once a year as an international elections observer for the Department of State, going to Georgia, Bulgaria, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. So he's lived a full, rich, engaging life where he's worked with a lot of organizations to help them really maximize what they're doing. But mandatory retirement was looming. He needed something else to do, some other way to give back, to use his mind, to utilize his expertise. Andy found us through a friend, another partner at his law firm who had already been volunteering with us. And after going through training with a cohort of 15 other professionals, he was assigned his first project, helping a Community-based human service agency reorganized their physical space and workflow to break down silos, better leverage technology, and improve how clients were served. Community Action Incorporated is a $14 million one-stop shop for a variety of programs, including adult education, Head Start, educational scholarships, a food pantry, literacy programs, and housing. To give you a sense of what they do, last year they provided over 3,000 households with heating assistance. They provided WIC benefits to more than 2,700 families, and they do preschool for 800 children. So CAI had just acquired a new building and had an opportunity to bring all of their services under one roof. But they didn't have the internal expertise or the bandwidth to figure out how to do this. Nor as a nonprofit did they really have the funds to go out and hire a consulting firm that could spend hours and hours doing this for them. They needed talent, and they needed to find a non-traditional way to do this. So Andy was part of an ESC team of volunteers, which included a Six Sigma executive from GE, an IT specialist who had just finished a gig where he was a chief information officer at St. Mary's Center for Women, and a former law office colleague who, while she was a partner at this law firm, she oversaw the redesign and build out of offices in Boston, New York, Hartford, and Providence. So over the course of 6 months, this team met regularly with the client. They gathered information, generated recommendations regarding the reorganization of programs, space, data collection, and data management, and then worked with the client to develop an action strategy so they could implement these recommendations. They also coached key members throughout the project. So the CEO worked closely with Andy, strategizing about how to motivate staff, how to bring on the right people, how to make this transition really work, how to manage the change. By the way, the project cost the organization a total of $5,000 through ESC. They were able to get a matching grant for another $5,000, so ESC was able to bring in revenue that helps to sustain our programs. But for essentially $10,000, this organization was able to do, I think it was about 400 hours of consulting time from our consultants. It was a great success. They brought on the IT professional through another program of ours, which I'll talk on afterward, to continue to implement these changes. And they just called me before I came to visit here in California with another project that was similar about how to, again, make the most out of their programs. So Andy's second project was with I Have a Dream Foundation. It is a federated nonprofit, and they empower children in low-income communities to achieve higher education and fulfill their leadership potential, providing them with guaranteed tuition support and equipping them with skills, knowledge, and habits they need to gain entry into higher education and succeed in college and beyond. As I say, by helping our dreamers gain access to college, we're putting our dreamers on a different academic and life trajectory while having broader impact on the students' families and the generations that follow. So I Had a Dream Foundation wanted to know how to better support its affiliates and ideally bring down costs for their operations to serve the wider network. So Andy's all-volunteer team included an insurance executive with extensive benefits experience, a former CFO, and an HR specialist who worked, again, this was about a 6-month project, to identify possible offerings, assess market need, evaluate pricing models, flag potential legal issues and financial complications, and ultimately make recommendations to the foundation about how they should proceed. So they looked at back office, health benefits, fundraising and other technical assistance, retirement, and other benefits. This project, they spent about 500 hours working on this. So these were 2 examples of how our consultants have engaged nonprofits in really helping them move the ball, become more efficient, to do things which for-profit companies do all the time. Look at what they're offering and figure out how to do it better. So nonprofits have a special need. I like to describe myself as having a nonprofit heart, but a for-profit head. And by that, I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in the mission of nonprofits, provide goods and services to those who could not otherwise afford them. This, by the way, also includes arts organizations, conservation programs, and other institutions that curate social good, basically bringing down the cost for society to have access to certain things. So having a nonprofit heart and a business head also means I think nonprofits should be self-sustaining, efficient, and continuously improving. So they need to figure out how to leverage their opportunities to the fullest. CAI and I Had a Dream had opportunities and needed the expertise to really take advantage of them. Without help, they lacked the internal capacity, they lacked the know-how. So just like for-profits, nonprofits need talent and capital to fuel innovation and deliver services to their clients. But their model is inherently constrained by what a third party is willing to pay for those services. So like many in the sector, I think nonprofit is a poor descriptor of what we do. Profit is essential to our model, just like any other business. Without profit to fuel back into what we're doing, we wither on the vine and we die. So the difference, as I like to describe it, is instead of an individual paying for the goods and services we provide, nonprofits have to convince a third party to pay for that. That third party has to see some benefit to them, but the correlation is not direct. It creates situations where the demand might be high. Lots of people need food. The supply, in terms of those who are willing to help support that mission, doesn't always fit. And regardless of who wants to fund a project, more often than not, they don't want that money to go to overhead. They don't want that money to go to capacity building. Many foundations say outright, we don't give to capacity building and we don't give to overhead. We don't give to salaries. So the organization is strapped in trying to figure out how do we do what we do better without investing anything into our operations. This is where we come in. So the baby boomers, over the next decade, will evolve from a population where 1 in 10 Americans are over the age of 65 to 1 in 4. By 2030, more Americans will be over the age of 65 than under the age of 15. This same demographic shift is unfolding across the world. Japan, 1/5 of the population is over the age of 65 and is on track to increase to 1/3 of the population by 2050. Each day, 10,000 people in the United States reach the age of retirement. So, what is retirement? Missing a slide. Traditionally, it meant leaving work to relax, retire, and kind of prepare for death. Age 65 was set by the Social Security Act in 1935 as the official retirement age because people didn't live past that. In fact, the life expectancy was about 58. So you were lucky to reach the age of retirement. But since the 1960s, life expectancy has begun to creep up. And when it hit 70, retirement began to mean leisure time. Many people played golf, going on cruises, moving to Florida. You had more time, basically, to devote to whatever it is you may have wanted to do, but you didn't have a lot of time. Now, with life expectancy nearing 85, some people have begun to think, well, I have 20 years after I retire. That's a lifetime to some people. Retirement means trying something new. So in the US, we have termed this new stage of life Encore. It's a new way of looking at what once was called retirement, so that focuses on leveraging excess cognitive capacity to engender social change. So this requires the rethinking from two places. It requires older adults to reimagine their next stage of life. They're not just stopping. They're not leaving work and going into the great abyss where there is golf and cruises. But it also requires us businesses and nonprofits as businesses to think about how we can leverage this talent. How do we think about old people? What are our biases around ageism, and how do we transform them? So Mark Freeman is the founder of the Encore movement, really in the U.S. And his organization, Encore.org, has been one of the leaders around this thinking. So we at ESC really work at how do we find this right fit? How do we help match people who are retiring or thinking about retiring with nonprofits who have this great need A little background about us. We were founded as Executive Service Corps by the managing partner of Fidelity and the chairman of Hood in '83. We just hit our 35th anniversary. And it was part of a national trend to encourage business leaders to lend their talents to the nonprofit community. Just before we were founded, International Executive Service Corps, or IESC, was founded as kind of a partner to the Peace Corps, as a way to kind of leverage, again, executives going into the field, into developing nations, and help them build the infrastructure they need to spread capitalism. I believe they put it nicely as support sustainable economic growth in developing countries to improve living standards by strengthening private enterprise. So in 1977, David Rockefeller, who was the head of Chase Bank, and Frank Pace, who was the former head of General Dynamics Corporation, launched National ESC to bring that talent internal. It was thought of as a different way to approach philanthropy. As opposed to just giving money, you can give your talent and time and expertise to the nonprofit community. Their model was different. At that time, it was really coming in and just telling the organizations what you think they should do. And the funding was a little bit different. These people, for the most part, paid their own way. David Rockefeller put up the money to run the organization that helped him give advice to other organizations. We're a little different in that, but our mission is still the same: leveraging the talent of experienced professionals. So today we offer a suite of services that help meet the needs of our clients, the nonprofits, the funders, and the Encore talent who are looking for these opportunities. So our newest program is ESC Discovery. We launched this because there's a disconnect, we found, between people who want to do good in the community and how they can do it. Studies, like the one from the International Longevity Center, have shown that, yeah, people want to give back to society, but they don't do it. You ask if they want to, you'll have yes. You see if they do, 5 years later, they've done nothing. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One is just having a bad experience. As someone who has volunteered for many organizations, I can say it's quite easy to go into a situation and feel undervalued, frustrated, unused. And as someone who's run programs, I can tell you it takes a lot of effort to have a good volunteer management program. So walking in off the street to an organization that you know of and wanting to help is a nice idea, but it ends up leaving both sides feeling like they're not getting much out of it. But in addition to having some bad experiences, most people just don't know where to start. We found if you ask someone, do you know of a nonprofit, they will kind of stare back at you. I don't know of any. They do, but they need prompts. They need help. They need guidance to figure out what those organizations are. So ESC Discovery, as we say, helps people move from clarity to from confusion to clarity. And we do this through workshops, ebooks, and transition navigators who serve as coaches that give kind of nudges to individuals who are in transition to help them kind of figure out their path. So many of our workshops are conducted with local councils on aging, which are these quasi-governmental organizations that are based in the community to help people figure out what to do and navigate the aging process. Our target market, yes? It's completely separate. So the question was, is ESC Discovery a training program for consulting? We do our own training for the consulting and the fellows. ESC Discovery is really a pipeline. It helps people in the community figure out, do they want to do this and how do they want to do this? Our target market is corporations. So many of our corporate partners are looking to ways to support their aging workforce in figuring out this transition process and what they can do to find purpose beyond their careers. We encounter lots of individuals who love what they do, but they've been doing it for 50 years. They can't begin to imagine, what do I do if I'm not doing this? So I'm going to show you, if this goes easily, a quick video.
ESC Discovery, helping individuals 50 and up find their next life opportunity. For baby boomers facing retirement, the prospect of life without work can be frightening. Bob Young, a recent John Hancock retiree in employee communications, wondered how he would fill his days.
My wife Jane, she said to me, "Don't you wake up in the morning and ask what we're doing today." And I said, "Don't worry about it. That's not going to happen."
Purpose is something that gives meaning to life.
David Guyton is director of ESC Discovery, leading pre-retirement seminars in both corporate and community settings.
To have a purpose, research has said, adds 7 years of healthy, active, productive life. And when it's directed properly through either pro bono or for pay work, benefits others through the good work that you're doing to help them either find their way or help other nonprofits build their capacity. And at the end of the day, it's good for society.
That's what we're kind of mulling over, trying to figure out what that means for us. And for both of us, it'll probably mean some volunteer work, use our professional skills in ways that continue to help others in some way.
At the Bill Rick.
So, as I said, ESC Discovery helps people figure out what they want to do next. And we do this kind of doing an inventory on what are their passions, what are their skills, what are their interests, what are their availabilities, motivations, and so on. Really taking them through a complete catalog of their life so far and where do they want it going. A recent pilot workshop with a national corporation headquartered just outside of Boston filled up within 15 minutes. There's a lot of interest in this. There's a lot of uncertainty about how to approach the Encore years. And we believe by helping people better understand their options, we can help funnel those resources into the nonprofit community. So now I'm going to take you through a few different types of Encore engagements that we direct people to through the Discovery program. So the first one is what most people think of when they think of volunteering. It's traditional volunteering. I call this kind of frontline staffing. It could be episodic, low intensity, hands-on, and often emotionally rewarding. This is mentoring. This is reading with kids, visiting the sick, preparing meals at a soup kitchen, etc. It's unskilled for the most part. And lots of organizations use traditional volunteers to augment services provided. I want to focus right now on ones that really do this for the older population. Generations Incorporated, specifically set up to leverage seniors exclusively. So their program is all about partnering seniors with youth as a mentoring opportunity. Others, like Generation to Generation or Experience Corp, serve as umbrella organizations where they work with nonprofits who need volunteers to attract and manage older volunteers. It's important because there's a cultural piece. Someone who is 20 and volunteering has a different set of expectations and a different set of needs than someone who is 65 and volunteering. You want to be able to match that. And we're currently, one of our partner organizations is working with a foundation to create training programs to help increase how these umbrella organizations can make volunteering with frontline more enjoyable, more prevalent. So skills-based volunteering is, I think, what's one of the new things we're going to talk about today. It requires that volunteers have a specific set of skills which the nonprofit leverages in order to make systemic impact. So a traditional volunteer might come in and fill a backpack with items that have been donated to give to a foster child. A skills-based volunteer might design an inventory tracking program that allows the nonprofit to better manage donation pipeline and set up indicators of when they have to do a new campaign. So for-profit companies have begun to see the value in having employees participate in these skilled volunteer programs, both as part of corporate responsibility, professional development, and workplace enrichment activities. It's really popular among millennials, and there are certain nonprofits that are dedicated just to making those type of matches. But examples of skill-based volunteering programs that are working specifically with older adults are some of these. So RSVP, ESC, and SCORE are really focused just on older adults, whereas the Harvard CAP program, CCT, Catch a Fire, Taproot, and the alumni consulting team here at Stanford have a blend. They're all professionals, but they might be early in their career, mid-career, late career, or thinking of retiring. ESC is what we're part of. It stands for Executive Service Corps, although we rebranded as Empower Success Corps. And it works with, it's across the country. So we have a wonderful office here in Southern California. ESC is Southern California. But there's offices in Chicago, New York City, Portland, who do similar things to what we're doing. CCT is much like the Harvard CAP program and the Stanford Business Graduate School Alumni Consulting Program, works with nonprofits based on graduates from business programs. So our program, our core program remains a consulting program. And it's in flexible engagements that fit into kind of our portfolio lifestyle. So that might include part-time, paid work, watching the grandchildren, other volunteer activities, travel, and hobbies. I currently oversee 150 consultants, all senior professionals, 20, 30 plus years of experience. A little over half self-identify as retired, but we found that could mean just about anything. Our board chair, or former board chair, is someone who I used an example. He says he's retired because he left his primary career. He's an adjunct professor teaching a full course load, served as our board chair, and started raising alpacas as his kind of on-the-side activity. Probably more busy than he was as a consultant in his previous career, but thinks of himself as retired. We do between 60 and 80 engagements a year with nonprofits in the Boston area. The IRS requires us to value the services of our volunteers, and that comes out to about $2.5 million worth of donated services each year. So consultants like Les, Bruce, and Andy are able to pick projects that interest them. I kind of serve as a matchmaker. So when a project comes in, I reach out to them and say, is this something you want to do? They're put on a diverse team of like-minded professionals who are at similar stages of life and feel the same way about giving back to the community. They want to do something that's meaningful to them. We welcome them into the ESC family, which kind of doubles as a work family. So those that have left kind of a structured environment like that now have another circle of friends. We provide training. We provide business cards, which we found been very important in kind of that cultural aspect. They now can hand them out and say, this is who I am. I have an identity. I am a consultant. We give opportunities for professional development and networking. I think actually our network is one of our biggest values. In addition to the 150 consultants who are active right now, there are hundreds who have passed through us, and then their extended network of our volunteer activities and our clients. There's so much we can connect, and that's one of the pieces I love about my job, is that if someone comes to me with a question about a project they're working on, I can connect them to any number of other professionals who have dealt with similar issues with similar organizations. So teams are carefully assembled to kind of balance skills, personality, work style. It's important that the consultants really enjoy what they're doing because they're not getting paid, at least not in cash. They refer to what they're doing as getting psychic income. These are people who really enjoy problem solving, and this work is fun to them. So part of my job is making sure that it remains fun. So I deal with things like putting out fires, doing the business development, working with cranky clients, the less fun things. But because I do that, we can leverage the talent of these senior professionals to do some amazing work. So the projects, like the ones I described earlier, are mostly strategic. And actually, most of our engagements are categorized as strategic plans. We stress our work is collaborative, that the client owns the project every step of the way. And as part of that, we're really keen on doing action plans or implementation plans. No ESC report is ever to sit on a shelf. part of that psychic income the consultants get is seeing the clients move the ball. They want to see progress. These are people who are doers. They're doing this work because they like to have things happen. So often our consultants, when a project is completed, will stay engaged with the nonprofit. We do formal check-ins every couple months to see how they're doing, but the consultants will sometimes go on the board of the nonprofit, will check in on their own, and are always available to answer questions to kind of help keep things going. You guys aren't asking a whole lot of questions. I'm just going to throw that out there. So another opportunity is through paid engagements. So this is ideal for people who enjoy working in office or who want something more structured, but don't want the same intensity or the same path as their earlier career. Anyone at any age can go out and get a job. But for the purpose of this talk, I'm talking about positions within nonprofit organizations that are not typically market rate. So the goal of the participant is to give back and to contribute, but not necessarily to make a lot of money. They could have stayed at their old career for that. They could have done something else. Some choose this work because they need some sort of income to fuel their Encore lifestyle. They don't need as much as they were making before. The kids are in college or out of college. The house is paid for. A small stipend means a lot. Others do it just because volunteering doesn't appeal to them. Their value proposition means they want to get paid something. They don't feel like giving it away for free. But again, they don't need to be making lots of money. A small exchange is enough for them to feel valued. And again, making volunteers, even if they're paid, feel valued is important for the continuation of the project. They want new challenges and they want to be creative. So there are lots of different paths to doing Encore Career. But Encore Career agencies are really focused on matching talent in a way that is sensitive to all the cultural issues. This is something that sector switchers often take on as a way to build that network and that experience. They may have had great experience being a manager somewhere, but it's not the same to jump right into a nonprofit. So Reserve is for usually administrative type projects, someone who wants to come in and be hands-on in the office environment. Encore Fellowship Network, and I'll talk about that a little bit more with our Encore program, is for people who really want to do high-impact projects and be based in a nonprofit but taking on a higher level role. So we have about 100 prospective fellows in our pool. Our program we started about 4 years ago. Nationally, the Encore program, Encore Fellowship program, placed 250 fellows in their first 2 years. We've been around for 4 years and we've made 45 matches. 10 of those matches have come into the first quarter of FY18. So you can see we're growing pretty exponentially. It's great for interim and transitional roles or starting new programs. Yes? You must occasionally have bad matches. How do you handle that? That's the fun part. No. So the question was, you must occasionally have bad matches. And how do you handle that? I say there's a lot of work up front to go in to ensure that there's a good match. Getting to know the fellows very closely. So there's an online application process that the fellows go through. Then they go through a screening process and are interviewed. And then they go through a training process. So that helps us to really understand who they are, what their motivations are. If we don't feel there will be a fit for a fellowship, we tell them. We don't want people sitting in the pool expecting something and not having it materialize. That is hard to know, what percentage we screen out. I don't have those numbers at the top of my head. But I would say with the consulting, it's a pretty self-selective group. People who want to do it tend to be motivated by the right things and the right people. So it's a pretty small amount I screen out there, just because of who comes in the door. With the fellows, what screens people out the most is their skills are not something we see a high demand for. So we'll be very honest that I'm sure you can be of value to some organization, but we're probably not going to be able to make that match in a timely fashion.
What are the skills that are the highest demand?
So what are the skills that are highest matched? We never have enough development professionals, but that's kind of a flaw in the program. Nonprofits want people who could raise money. People who can raise money usually worked in nonprofits. But we find marketing and sales backgrounds can really be trained and coached into doing fund development. Finance positions are really great. We've had people serve as the first CFO for a nonprofit. So the nonprofit finally gets large enough to hire someone to manage their finances. A fellow can come in and build those systems in a way that a new hire really wouldn't have experience doing. We've done some interim executive director roles. The programs I think that work the best are when someone's coming in to launch a new program. So they're given a lot of latitude, and their experience building things is really critical. And at the end, they have something that they can maybe stay on and continue to manage, which happens quite often, or they can step away and someone with less experience can make it successful. So Encore partners with a lot of corporations that are interested in helping older employees kind of transition out. And this is the last video I'm going to show.
For high-impact projects. When Tracy Gustafson, a computer engineer at Intel in Hudson, decided to take an early retirement offer at 55 after 17 years on the job, she found an intriguing option.
So every match should have one set. I found out that Intel sponsored an Encore fellowship, matching retired professionals with nonprofits to find ways that they can work in the nonprofit, work with the staff and directors to make the most impact. Biggs, take a look at that with your little. I was looking for something different to do. I wasn't going to continue along doing engineering, and this looked like a great opportunity to find a way to use my experience and skills to give back. Sometimes it actually gets a little bit stuck in the oil.
Through ESC fellowships, Tracy became a Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, or STEM, coordinator for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Massachusetts Metro West. Intel supported her 20-hour-a-week fellowship with a one-year stipend.
So break that up in pieces.
Today, she leads adult and child pairs through an experiment at the Boys and Girls Club in Marlborough.
What we do at my STEM is we take the kids that are served by Big Brothers Big Sisters that are matched with their mentor, and we add an enrichment program on there to give them fun, hands-on ways to experience the sciences and technologies, to kind of spark their interest, and also, most importantly, to make them believe that they're capable and that this is something they could do, having a career in STEM.
Tracy's role also involves community outreach and building corporate partnerships.
We can stop there. So what level of education do our fellows have? They, for the most part, they have master's degrees. It's not required. It's really about the career you've had and the impact that it's really about the career you've had and what skills you can leverage. So I don't think I know of any fellows who haven't gone to college, but conceivably, if you founded your own company out of high school and had a successful career and now want to give back as a fellow, that's perfectly acceptable. So Intel is our largest partner. Since 2011, hundreds of Intel employees have received fully funded fellowships from the company. So basically, it's an option for anyone who wants to retire from Intel. You have the option of taking this kind of soft landing, where they will partner you with a nonprofit, and they'll actually pay the stipend directly. So the nonprofit doesn't have to outlay any additional funds for this fellow. And it gives you 6 months to a year to kind of explore this new career, make these new connections, and decide if this is something you want to do. Afterward, Tracy, as you may have heard, was asked to stay on and continue in that role. Other fellows decide to go elsewhere. It's really up to them. Some decide to take on traditional volunteering, some decide to go back to skills-based volunteering, some take on another fellowship in a completely different organization. It's really a flexible way to explore how do I want to spend this next stage of life. So the corporation sees it as a win-win. It's a way for them to help employees kind of transition out. So most ESC fellows are what we call self-pay. Intel and those corporate models are great because the corporation pays the full freight of the cost. But self-pay meaning that nonprofits pay the stipend, as well as a matching fee to ESC for the recruitment, the training, the onboarding, and the continued support afterward. Because these people are sector switchers, we want to make sure that they are well supported in this role, that they have a cohort which they meet with regularly to kind of talk about issues that they're facing, and have access to all of our consultants to help with nonprofit issues that they may not have seen before. So if you're stepping into an organization as the first Chief Human Resource Officer they've had, or the first CFO they've ever had, you're going to come across some nonprofit-specific issues that you've not seen before. Having a network that you can rely on to kind of answer those questions makes that transition much easier and much less scary for the nonprofit. So it's in, yes? So the fellows often go in as individuals, but they are part of a cohort that meets regularly within the ESC office. There are some models which have them go in as teams. So Aspiranet here in California has its own fellowship program. And so they are constantly placing fellows within their organization. Most fellowship programs or program operators are placing the fellows in multiple different organizations. We just had our first client take 3 fellows at one time, but for 3 different roles. But it's entirely possible to bring on a whole team of fellows. It's a really flexible model that's designed to meet the needs when they come up.
In the case when it's a team, is there a team lead that selects the team, or does ESC select everybody that goes with that one nonprofit? Because there's the matching nonprofit to the expert, but there's also the team dynamic of all these in households.
Right. So that's something we consider. We haven't done it a lot, so I can't talk too much about a formal process around that. In terms of the consulting, it's really looking at the team as a whole. What are the skill sets we need? So we might need someone with finance, someone with marketing, someone with straight up management, someone with HR. How well do they play together? What are their work styles? And what does the client need? The client might need a really strong lead who's going to keep them focused on a timeline, but a softer second in command who can deal with some of the issues that come up when they feel they're pushed too much. So we're really trying to think holistically about sending in a team that can meet a variety of needs. E.G., did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your matching process? Is it manual? If it is, then how are you going to scale up as the numbers keep surging?
So for the fellowship program, Encore.org has a great platform called EF Match, which is really Salesforce based. And it's a high-touch, high-tech project in which you get to know the fellows pretty well, but when a job description comes in, you match them based on the criteria. You get a list of everyone who is a match, and then you can kind of screen based on other criteria, but at least you're seeing who in the pool has those technical skills, those interests in that area. And then we send them the opportunity and say, you came up as a possible match. Is this something you might want to do? And people say yes, no, or maybe based on a variety of factors. Someone might think it's a great opportunity, they'd love to do it, but they just booked a cruise. And they plan to be away for 2 months, and it's not going to be a fit for them. Others think it's a great fit in terms of skills match, but the mission isn't something they're passionate about. Or the mission is something they're passionate about, but the skill set tends not to be the exact fit we think it is. So it's really a back and forth. And then the fellow goes through an interview, like any other job. They're being hired. So it's important that the nonprofit gets to know them personally. So that's why I say it's kind of a high touch, high tech. There's a tech component to making the match, but so much in nonprofits comes down to personality and relationships that you can't skip that. So in terms of scaling, it's more program managers.
So I imagine when a lot of people think about volunteering, it's really traditional volunteering that's in their minds. They think, okay, if I'm going to volunteer, it is going to be going to a soup kitchen.
Yeah.
And I think that's on both sides. It's probably on the nonprofit side and on the senior professional side. So how do you communicate to both the nonprofit and the senior professional that this really is a skills-based job?
So for the senior professionals, it's how we market our program. It's talking to them about what do you really want to get out. So the Discovery program is a way we do that. But we also, for our consulting program and our fellowship program, we post on Idealist, we post on Volunteer Match, and the people who apply are really interested in the skills-based portion of it. We're very clear about the time commitment. For consulting, it's 6 to 10 hours a week when you're on a project. For fellowships, it's probably about 20 hours a week. You work out that job description. Some are as low as 10 hours a week. Some are as much as full-time and 40 hours a week. In terms of the clients, that's an ongoing challenge. We feel we're far too well of a kept secret. But every time I talk to a nonprofit, they're thrilled at this idea that they can have access to this talent they just thought was above their pay scale. They think about, how do I get a recent college graduate, to do a program that requires so much more experience than they could possibly have, but they can't afford someone who has 30 years of experience. This is a way to really bridge that gap. And this is why we try and think creatively about retirement and volunteering and really try and promote that in the community.
I just have a question in relation to building awareness among organisations, among employers, whether it's in manufacturing or professional services, and are there some initiatives to build this awareness of these opportunities for people as they get closer to retirement? Because that obviously is sort of the supply side.
Right.
And I just wondered to what extent there's some clever creative ideas to engage HR professionals in those organisations, for example, as part of creatively thinking about opportunities for their workforce as they get older.
Right. So how are we building the pipeline on the corporate side? So our Discovery program is one way of doing that. David Guyden, who you saw in the video, he is routinely reaching out to corporations, to their human resources departments, and seeing if they'd be interested in this type of programming. Sometimes we go through corporate social responsibility, but more often than not, it is through HR. And we're slowly gaining awareness and traction. We've had some really great opportunities. McGraw-Hill Credit Union was featured in the video. John Hancock works with us a fair amount. TJX, TJ Maxx's parent corporation, is based just outside of Boston. Any organization that really wants to be seen as age-friendly is looking at these programs and looking at new and creative ways to not just help their workforce transition, but to help them think about what else they can be doing.
Have you thought about reaching out to the CSR offices of a lot of the large corporations? Because there's this big problem where corporations say that they want to do CSR, and then they just end up doing philanthropy and giving money because that's easy.
Yep.
And if you're maybe facilitating a structured program, you may be more likely.
So the question is, do we reach out to CSR, corporate responsibility, social responsibility departments? Yes, we've not had as much luck there. Oftentimes they will transition us to the HR department. CSR works a lot with current employees, is what I found. So they have opportunities for younger employees actually to engage in skills-based volunteering with nonprofits as a way to do professional development. So someone who's never managed a project before can manage a project with this small nonprofit. And it's great for the nonprofit, and it's great for the corporation, and it's great for the professional. But it's not really helping with the Encore issue.
I came in late, so I'm sorry if we covered this, but do you do any work with law firms?
So we're looking a lot. We talked to several law firms because of mandatory retirement. I profiled a lawyer at the very beginning who is mandatory retirement kind of forced him out. And we have several attorneys who work with us. I think they're great because they're used to doing a lot of research and trying to tackle different problems. We are very clear that lawyers don't come to us to practice law. There's other avenues for doing that. We don't give legal advice. We don't do legal projects. But we can talk about the aspects you need. When we did the I Had a Dream project, understanding the legal consequences of some of the decisions is incredibly important. And we might give you some information about how you might want to handle those and take them to an attorney who you're paying for that specific problem.
How much is age-related bias a problem with your prospective nonprofits?
It's a problem we can overcome. It's more often the problem comes from, at least in the consulting realm, with the fact that the consultants are not paid. And my argument is that these people are working harder than anyone you'd pay to do this job. They're motivated not by a paycheck and advancing their career, but just because they want to do this. They want to see you succeed, so they will put in whatever is necessary. We often say our consultants go above and beyond. As I said, we projects 400 or 500 hours of work on something that you would not get a paid consultant to do. In terms of I do though get clients who kind of take a pause when they see someone with white hair and wonder if they have the stamina to do the project. Or are relevant and current enough. And that is a challenge, but it's building up a reputation with those clients. It's me going to them and saying, no, we can do this. You can trust us as an organization to match you with the right talent. And that's why these matching organizations are so important, because there's an extra level of accountability. And if something isn't going right with a project, whether it's a fellowship or consulting engagement, they can come back to us and we can fix the problem however necessary. So I really am grateful for the time we've had to talk today. I think we're talking about a lot of cultural change, rethinking about how we structure retirement and what we mean by volunteering. And the questions you've asked kind of show that you're now thinking about this differently, and I think that's wonderful, and it'll help move us forward into solving some of these issues that we face in society, using talent that's readily available to really help the community in general. So I thank you, and more questions are always welcome, but we can do that afterward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I like questions.
Well, what do you think would be the biggest challenge with making this kind of program global?
It's been, I wouldn't say it's been a challenge to scale. I think with any nonprofit endeavor, which these have all been, we struggle with the same resource constraints that our clients work with. And we've been blessed to have consultants who've come in and work with us. So it would require management, myself and the other people on our team, to be able to take time out to really work with our consultants on how do we scale this globally. It's a marketing issue. It's an issue of helping everyone know what benefits could be. And globally, you're talking about different cultures of volunteering, different ideas around aging, different ideas of what adults should be doing with their time, what's the government's responsibility versus society's responsibility.
There are, on global, I'm actually doing some volunteering with Encore, helping with their global connections. And there are some very interesting projects in different countries, like in Korea, for example. They've built campuses for people who are 50 plus. So there are different initiatives in different countries which are doing something similar, but in different ways. So I'm happy to share with you those developments.
I do have, so I mentioned the ebooks that Encore or ESC Discovery has. And so I have some flyers if anyone's interested in learning more about them. We have two in particular. One is thinking beyond the money. So most retirement planning focuses on how we're going to pay for it. This is what else are you thinking about? And then Discover Your Encore is a workbook to help you think about what activities would make the most sense for you. Is it skills-based volunteering, direct service? Is it board service? Is it paid work? What makes most sense for you?
Do you see this actually evolving into something which can be deployed during gross unemployment periods in an economy? It doesn't have to be, close to retirement people even.
No. So the nice thing about people who are considering retirement is they're thinking about leaving the workforce. Those that are, like myself, still fully engaged in gainfully employed and hope to be for a long time, there's more concerns about giving away your talent. It's a different set of concerns. So if there's a demand for talent and there's a market for it, I don't see this being a really great solution. In the nonprofit sector, there is a great demand for talent, but there's not the market to sustain it, which is why these Encore positions make the most sense.
So earlier you were saying your limits to ability to scale is basically limited by the number of good program managers you have that are good at making matchmakers.
Yeah.
How did you become a good matchmaker, and what kinds of people how do you make more matchmakers in order to scale?
That's a good question. I think it's just about training and receptivity. It's about hiring the right people. I have a law degree and a master's of divinity, so and a community organizing background. So I read people pretty quickly, and I get finding what motivates people and how to do that. So I think a good training program and a good screening program to find the people is all you need. This is always the awkward part where you're looking at the audience. Do you have more? Should I sit down?
Well, we can bring more questions.
Yeah, I actually am going to sit down.
Yeah. So thank you very much again for joining us.
My pleasure.